Runaway brides of Reddit, what's your story? What was the final straw? How last second did you leave? Had a friend that didn't know she was the bride until she was halfway down the aisle. Her parents had arranged a marriage for her, common in her culture, and had told her that the family had all been invited to a cousin's wedding. My friend was told everyone was going to be wearing white for whatever reason. I don't remember. They arrived at the church just before the bride was scheduled to walk down the aisle. My friend, thinking they're late, wanted to slip in and stay in the back. Her father, however, takes her arm and they start walking up the aisle. It isn't until they're halfway up that she stops and realizes everyone is looking at her and smiling and crying tears of joy. She turned to one of her aunts in the pew next to her and asked them who was getting married. The whole church went silent, and then the aunt looked at my friend's father and said, "You can't be serious. You planned a wedding for your daughter and just expected her to go along with it? Have the two of them even met? Did you seriously think this would work?" The whole room was them chattering about them, and the father just cleared his throat and told his daughter to keep walking. Luckily the aunt grabbed my friend first and pulled her into the pew, pushed her past the row of people, and they both ran out of the church. Her parents disowned her after that, and she moved in with that aunt. Got engaged after 3 months and started planning pretty much straight away. Was very young and his mother wanted to decorate the entire wedding redneck ASF. I had a fallout with her over it as I felt she wasn't letting anyone have a say and we were paying for it. Red flags started popping up. His temper. He got a huge neck tattoo with my name. Started becoming possessive and verbally abusive. Then dress shopping, I broke down and said, "No, this isn't right." It was like a store of thousands of dresses was telling me there wasn't a single one that was in there for this occasion, so it couldn't happen. I sat in my car, went home, placed the ring on the counter, packed my stuff and left. Heard a story from my mom about a friend of hers who planned on getting married. He was a great guy, very loving and responsible, etc., but his one flaw was his terribly bad temper. Their quarrels were always so bad that she would come crying to my mom about how he yelled at her. My mom advised her friend to leave before it's too late, but the friend genuinely thought he would change. The day before the wedding he threw a tantrum so bad that he yeeted a whole table past her head. She nearly died. She canceled the wedding and never talked to him again. My GFS friend got married to a royal ducking douche recently. He called her fat on their first date. Forced her to sell the modest house she already owned to buy him a massive ducking monster. Forces her to be distant from her friends, and we suspect he hits her. Among many other things I'm not privy to. At the wedding he put together a slideshow which was dominated by pictures of him and his friends with a few of him and his wife. He spent 80% of his speech talking about how grateful he is for his friends. We were all rooting for her to be a runaway bride. Alas, she went through with it and got understandably drunk. He berated her for being drunk and told her she is an embarrassment, despite being quite inebriated himself. Please people, if you're in a bad situation, seek help or let your friends help you. One of the people I know is what I can call a serial fiancé. She dates guys right until they propose to her. Then she says yes. Starts looking for venues, dresses, etc. And then she calls off the wedding and breaks up with a guy, saying I didn't want to marry him anyway. He's, insert reason here. The last time this happened she had an AMA about her wedding on Instagram. But 2 months before the supposed date of the wedding all her photos, AMA answers and mentions of engagement were gone. Maybe she's getting a kick out of it. I don't know. This is a good candidate for a serious tag. Might want to repost if this one doesn't take off. Runaway child bride? Anyway, when I was about 12 years old, smartphones became a thing. I started talking to a man online. He promised to take me away from my family. We talked every single day and late into the night. We loved each other about as much as a 12-year-old could live a 40-year-old man. He told me he'd make me a mother of many kids and planned to get me pregnant ASAP. One day he drove down from Tennessee to pick me up. He was outside my house waiting for me. I put on my favorite white dress and went out to meet him. Then I froze. My mom had just had yet another baby. I started thinking about all that I've missed out on. Them growing up. Finishing high school, I went back inside and never saw him again. My friend met a guy and within a week they were engaged. He was in the military and ghosted her about a month after proposing. 6 months later he turns up and starts working at the same place as her and acted like he didn't even know her. Does that count? LOL. Not me. But a friend. He was dating a girl he met in university. They had been dating for 3 or 4 years. Seemed like a solid relationship. A lot in common. Religion. Family values. Education goals. A week before their wedding she goes out on a date with another guy. How did my friend know? She came home and told him she was going out on a date with a guy from her work. She came home late, somewhat drunk, and tries to climb into bed. My friend interrupts her, asking what she's doing. She replies she's tired and wants to go to sleep. He kicks her out of the bed and tells her they are done. Long story short, it was messy. Cancelled wedding plans. Awkward explanations to everyone. Poor guy had PTSD for a year from the situation. Not me. But someone I know had to twice waste money on flights to some exotic location because the bride ran out on the groom. The first time she ran away right before the rehearsal period started. The second time was at the altar. You would think the guy would have gotten the message the first time around. But apparently it was a situation where a rich but not good-looking guy had managed to snag a supermodel, and in his fear of losing her, he tried to force her into a commitment by being emotionally manipulative. No, through coercion, and her feeling guilty. She was convinced twice to almost go through with it. From the pictures my friend showed me of the couple, I can honestly say that the groom was reaching like no other man had reached before. And I can sorta understand why he didn't want to lose her. But I can't condone manipulating someone into pretending to love you. Nor him deluding himself into thinking it could work after the failed wedding the first time around. You're just setting yourself up for disappointment by that point. My sister was almost called off her wedding 3 days before but changed her mind. They were in pre-wedding couples consoling and it went horribly. They wanted drastically different futures. She framed out and told my parents she was making a huge mistake. My parents told her not to get married if she wasn't sure. They paid for everything and didn't care about that, but people were on their way and she was embarrassed. So they told her to have the wedding but not fill out any paperwork or sign the marriage certificate, and that in the future if they were ready they could make it legal. Sister refused. Had giant wedding. Was married for 7 months. Divorce cost her about $25K. She somehow blames parents. Told this story before on a somewhat similar post, but was engaged. So almost a bride. And there were several final straws. A few were before the engagement. He lived in his car, no judgment on that, but this is relevant, at the time. So was not financially stable, and this was just a couple weeks into dating. Another was him wanting me to send selfies of myself proving where I was at all times and what I was wearing. Which was 99.9% my work clothes, black long sleeve shirts and pants cause I'm server, and at work. So if I wasn't texting back fast enough. Apparently I was with another man. About a month into the relationship he demanded a key to my condo. So he could see me whenever he wanted. The final straw was when he proposed. For down on one knee and said I knew we were meant to be the moment we matched, on Tinder. Go figure. I love you so much. Now I can show everyone I own you. Will you marry me? Boy bye. That was 3 months into the relationship. I had never met his family but heard a lot about them. He had only ever met my mother, but that wasn't planned. I said no immediately and walked away. He tried getting into my condo countless times and calling me. Unfortunately, I had to change my number and get a restraining order against him. He was and probably still is crazy AF. I hope this goes viral. I'm really interested in reading about their experiences as well. Not me or a bride LOL. But my uncle didn't show up to his wedding. It was a loveless marriage set up in a small farm town. He ran away with a woman he loves and has been with her ever since. I was almost a willing accomplice to a runaway groom. My brother was getting ready to marry a gal he had dated and broken up with several times. So anyway, they get engaged and the wedding day comes around. I'm in the wedding party. He and I are standing in the anteroom of the church wearing tuxes. He's getting cold feet, saying he doesn't know if he can through with it, etc. I tell him to call it off then. He says he can't. Everyone is here. The reception and honeymoon are planned. I tell him I'll walk out there and announce the wedding is off. You can slip out the back. It'll cost you a lot less money and pain now instead of an hour from now. No. He has to go through with. I thought it would be kind of interesting and cool to call off someone's wedding. But he went through with it. Fast forward 10 or so years to a bitter, expensive divorce. But he does have 2 good kids and seems happier. Excuse me everyone. There's been a slight change of plans. Not a runaway bride, but was hired to work the wedding as a florist. Many years ago, bride and groom had signed off on every contract and was fully prepared to tie the knot. Bride was on tour until 2 weeks before the wedding date. She's in theater, so we mostly communicated via email, and groom would come by to make payments and drop off items for the wedding. He was always pretty chill and laid back, not usually common with grooms. Turns out he was cheating on the bride with the bride's sister and the best man's girlfriend, also in their friend group. Bride finds out right before the bachelorette party and calls off the whole thing. Felt awful about not being able to refund any payments since we had placed bulk orders for her flowers, but offered her credit towards another event. We became FB friends. She's marrying someone else now, and seems much happier. I read it as Runaway Bridges and was very confused. I'm a man, dude. Damn, this is a good question. I wish this would take off. I really want to read those stories. I am getting married on August 29th. And for some reason, this thread made me nervous. Popcorn time. ITT. People who almost got married too young, too soon, or against their will. And now I'm nervous about my wedding in 3 months. Thanks. We are all going to be on Toad Films. Well, it started about a half hour before the wedding. I was in the room where we were keeping all the presents, and I was looking at this gravy boat. This really gorgeous Lamoche gravy boat. When all of a sudden, sweet and low, I realized that I was more turned on by this gravy boat than by Barry. And then I got really freaked out. And that's when it hit me. How much Barry looks like Mr. Potato Head. You know. I mean, I always knew looked familiar. But anyway, I just had to get out of there. And I started wondering, why am I doing this? And who am I doing this for? So anyway, I just didn't know where to go. And I know that you and I have kinda drifted apart. But you're the only person I knew who lived here in the city.